Hi, everyone. Welcome to Office Hours. If you're watching on YouTube, you can find out more about what we do at officehours.global. Our first hour is general discussion about media production. And our second hour is usually something we want to spend a little bit more time on. And today, Andrew Broughton is going to be talking about Companion. What is Companion? Why do we need Companion? I mean, I think we all know that we need companions. But in this specific case, we're going to talk about how we use it for production. So stay tuned for that. If you have questions, you can throw them into Mukana. You can ask those questions there. You can vote on them. You can chat with each other. If you're not in Mukana, you can go to askofficehours.global or use this little QR code right here. Askofficehours.global. Ask your questions there. You don't need to log in. You can just type them in any way you'd like to, 24/7, and we'll file them into the system and ask them either today, if they're pertinent to today, or in one of the days in the future. So throw those questions in, and let's go ahead and jump into those questions. TJ, what do we have?
Our first question this morning is from Paul Buchan in Columbus, Ohio. Paul says, are there any recommended test videos for assessing streams, ideally with high motion, vivid colors, tight shots for lip sync, dark and light contrasts, textures, patterns, and varying volumes? Or am I dreaming that a single video has it all?
I build different videos for this process, actually. I don't usually use lip sync. I usually have some more graphical things to show there, but let me show you what I'll kind of skip through a couple of them from one of the videos that I use here. So this is let's see here. Let's back up here. So here you have a color test. The reason that this color test is here is because I'm in some compressors, it will posterize, or you'll see stair stepping along the edges of these circles, and so that those just come up to make sure that that's there. This is just a motion test. I actually made it in motion, but this is hard to compress well, so you can see some probably in Zoom. You'll probably see some breakup there. This is a channel test, so it'll be it's going left, right, center, all those things. So it's just telling me where I'm sending you. I'm just literally my voice just going, left, front left, front right, center, and then you hear psh for LFE, that kind of thing. And that lets me know that my channels are correct, and it'll do it a couple times, so I have time to work on it. And then let's see here. There's sync. So these are changing tones and popping up so that I know, that's what I'm using instead of watching someone's lips. So that'll play through the system to see how that looks. And then let's see, this is what we tend to refer to as a Widowmaker file, which is that there is an enormous amount of things that are moving all at one time. And it's really hard to compress well. In fact, I played it out, it probably wouldn't compress well in Zoom. But there's so much detail here. This is shot up at, I shoot most of these shots up in, Goat Rock, just north of Bodega Bay. There's just a lot of good places to shoot where there's rocks, there's contrast, there's a lot of movement, and there's always waves. So anyway, that's and this was shot, I think, with a Blackmagic 12K. So I have lots and lots of versions of this in different frame rates. This is a fan, and this may look like a silly thing to put on here, but turns out if you're doing you're trying to predict directions for a compressor, this is really problematic, because it's not doing it in any regular sort of way. It's just doing it in the wind. And it turns out to be really hard for it to figure out what the motion vectors are, or it can, for some of the compressors. And so I actually bought this just to do this one video so that I can put it in there to $130 of fan that kept up in my yard for a while until the yard people kept on taking it down and finally broke it. Anyway, and that's pretty much it. But that's why this entire video is called the windmill video, because of this one video here. Anyway, so that gives you a sense of some of the tests. We have other tests that we use for other things, but that's a common, I run that one through a system pretty often just to see, while we're waiting for other things and just to see how things are going. And usually between things, we'll be running this to maybe, 50 or 100 venues and taking, looking on a big screen to see if everything's working. So anyway, there you go. That gives you an example of the kind of thing that we think about for those kinds of videos. Yeah, go ahead, Mitchell.
Could you get away with a Sarnoff on that if you just happen to have one?
Yeah, I just haven't had the budget to get the Sarnoff things, but you wouldn't do that. You would do both. So, in fact, I have access. The other file that I play into the system is a Sarnoff signal file. So it interrogates all of the compression and very specific resolutions. So a Sarnoff file or the SRI files are very specific, but they don't have a lot of motion typically. So this comes after the Sarnoff file. So yeah, I do both. Next question.
From Tim Mann in Melbourne, Australia. Recommendations on Mac video converters for an M1 Pro Mac running OS 12.
I think that the one that I use the most is compressor. I think you have another question about this a little later, but the one that I use for here is compressor. Media encoder is fine. It's a lot slower than compressor as far as it goes, and I find it actually has less tools. The all-purpose, I need to get something in and it doesn't work in compressor, I use Handbrake. Handbrake is basically a GUI for FFmpeg. So that is that will convert just about anything to just about anything else. But there are a lot of other tools, but those are the primary ones that I use on a relatively daily basis. There is a tool that I just started. If you need to, we're just talking about compression. If you need to scale or retime some video to play out, then I'm starting to use. Well, I'll let Chris answer here, and I'll remember what the software is. Go ahead, Chris.
There's another compressor that I came across. Oddly enough, when I first set up my Mac Studio and I was doing speed testing compressor, it was disappointingly slow. I couldn't figure it out. I was like, this computer is 5 years newer than the one I was replacing, and it was struggling to maintain equal compression speeds. And so I poked around and I found this compressor called Shutter Encoder.
Yep.
And wicked fast. But the user interface is so frustrating, I'd rather compress slowly. Oddly enough, the compression speeds on the Studio got faster, or maybe I changed hard drives and didn't realize it, but I'm not having the same issues as when I first got it. The first week I set it up.
Do you know if you had 2-pass or 1-pass set?
No, it was always the same. Sorry, my phone's ringing. No, I don't know off the top of my head. Because it was consistent.
Okay, because a lot of times when people say something's really, really fast, it means that compressor turned off 2-pass encoding. It's not. It may not even show it as a button, and it's just going, I'm not going to do 2-pass encoding. 2-pass encoding is looking ahead and going past it, and then coming back, knowing what you saw, and that is the difference between 1-pass and 2-pass is often 4 or 8x speed.
Yeah, no, and I understand that, but I was using the same compression settings. That's one thing that I do is I take all my customized compressor settings, and I copy them between machines so that we have the same compression settings across all the machines in the facility. Yep. So I was using the same setting, it was the same thing, but it was like, why is this slower? What happened? So I asked around. Yeah, Shutter Encoder is super fast, but frustrating UI.
It's funny, generally UIs often win. Like when it comes to it, unless you're going into kind of industrial, when you watch a movie on Apple TV, you download it from Apple or Disney or whatever. It took to do that 2-hour movie. It probably took 2 or 3 days to compress it. So because what it does, they do a lot of passes and they do a lot of processing, and they really it is basically trying to find the best solution for every frame. And oftentimes, they'll want, that's when they know what they want. Oftentimes it takes 2 or 3 passes of that to get exactly what they want. And they have people looking at every frame to make sure that it's the way it should be. And I would say that for Apple and Disney. I don't know about the other ones. Sometimes I wonder if anyone looked at it before.
Do you think that's still the case at Apple? I mean, I know it was in the early days, but
no, it's definitely the case.
I remember.
Yeah,
it was a long time ago. When I figured out that you could really get a better compression if you did 1 pass just to scale it, and then 1 pass to change the codec. I was like, whoa, that's a huge difference.
Yeah, the other thing is the other one that I was talking about is I had to go from 24 frames per second to 59.94 recently, and I used Topaz AI to do that. And so Topaz AI will let you set that up, except that it does, just in case you're wondering, if you're using a UHD source, Topaz AI, and you do it for a 90-minute piece, you're looking at 73 hours. so you just set it there and let it cook all weekend. But it does an incredible. It was kind of eye popping. There were a handful of little places that I went, but they're really complicated parts. But overall, the fact that it went from 24 to 5994 and every line, there was none of that blurring over top of each other, and like everything was crisp. It's amazing. It's an amazing world right now. Next question.
Matt Halverson in Brookings, South Dakota wants to know, can you explain the workflow for creating the pre-TV commercial highlight clips that are used in sports broadcast? Usually 3 or 4 clips are shown in slow-mo with effects before cutting to commercial. Are the editors getting those clips via a server?
Go ahead, Mitchell.
I can tell you how NFL Films does it. They're over here in Mount Laurel, New Jersey. But all their Amira cameras that they take out on, pardon me?
But it's not. That's not doing the commercials. Like it's the commercial. He's talking about the pre-show
create
commercials.
highlight reels,
those are,
and they distribute them. I'm just going to tell you how they do it.
I know, but that's not what he's asking. The TV commercials.
Never mind.
This is the pre-TV commercial highlights. This is happening right at the end of a quarter or going into a commercial break, and you'll see stuff that's happening right before the show. That is done with an EVS. So there's EVS operators that are basically grabbing those as they happen. And so there's a whole team back there. I don't know how many EVS operators are on a typical NFL game, but it's a lot. And a couple of them are putting together these highlight reels, and they're doing it in real time. So they're grabbing the things that are going to be the best clips. There's usually a producer that's kind of calling out what those are and clumping them all together. And oftentimes you'll see stuff added that happened minutes before the show. The EVS is recording all the time, and so it's just setting out in and out points. And those EVS operators are the whole football production teams are at another level. We were talking about it last night when we were watching the Amazon stuff, and the camera operators are pretty amazing when you think about how far away they are and what they're covering. But that's how what you're talking about is done, is with what's called an EVS. And there's other tools that kind of do it, but it's a $150,000 piece of hardware that just does this one thing, and it does it better than anyone else. And there's operators all over the U.S. that know how to do it. So it tends to be pretty much the standard. Next question.
Douglas Carmichael asks, on the Andre Rieu tour, Rieu wears 2 lavalier mics. Why would that be? And would there be any risks with 2 mics on the same person?
I wasn't able to look at this file here, but my guess is that's a primary and a backup. So typically we do that pretty often, actually, whenever we can. And sometimes they're in the same place, sometimes they're in different places, so that if the one mic gets dislodged, there's still another one there. But using 2 mics is a very popular approach to miking people when you can. Go ahead, TJ.
That was going to be my suggestion as a backup. If you watched any of the old live Apple presentations that they used to do when they were doing live on stage, every presenter had 2 lavaliers on them.
Yeah, and you'll see that pretty often in a lot of different environments. And that can be also, sometimes it's if a mic fails, if it gets torn out or whatever, but it's also there to, oftentimes we're using different frequencies, for the wireless. And so if one gets stepped on, the other one's still there. Next question.
Deborah Woodfork from Washington, D.C. asks, what's the best way to create a bootable flash drive? I'm troubleshooting recovering an old iMac.
Wow. I have not done that in a very long time. One of the challenges is you kind of needed to create it before it depends on what operating system you're in. So that recoverable boot drive needs to be created. So the thing you need to do is before you need it, you need to kind of create it from that computer. That's the challenge. And so it's in I believe it's in the recovery menu. TJ, I think you might, or Mitch, you might be able to correct me, but I think it's in the recovery menu is where you can create these boot drives. And I admit, I've not had to create a boot drive in a very, very, very long time. So I'm a little bit rusty, but if I remember correctly, creating those drives we created them within one of the recovery menus. I'm going to talk really slowly right now and see if somebody throws it into the chat. I don't know if let's see here, if the Mickey said, it depends on the version. Yeah, that's the problem. If it's an older OS, use Disk Maker X. is one way that you can do it. And you can do it, use the terminal to do it for some of the newer OSs. And David Brady in the chat has a link to the to a help thing. But I haven't had to do recovery for a very, very long time. I hope. Good luck with that. I have to admit, usually I keep most of my files off of my computers, so my computers mostly have just apps and things on them and everything else, and everything's backed up. If it's an older computer and it really doesn't restart, I have to admit that it usually turns into parts pretty quickly because I'm like, well, that's the end of that computer. I go, TJ.
If it's just an issue of recovering the files from a particular computer, then perhaps an option, if you're not able to get the computer rebooted again and working, is to pull the hard drive and attach it via like a USB cable, or if it's if it's removable from your iMac, you might have to get to a person who is experienced pulling the drive from the iMac, but you should be able to get to that data if needed.
Next question.
David Reddy from New York City, New York wants to know, discussions abound at work as to what our AV over IP solution should be in rebuild of a malfunctioning space, a multifunction space. Traditionally, Evert's nucleus, but leading more standards-based, should be 2110 or NDI.
I would say that 2110 is still pretty new. So I haven't, there are some 21 trend trucks and some larger productions that have been being used in production. But everybody that I've talked to that has tried to put that into their environment right now has had trouble. And a lot of it has to do with compatibility. There's a lot of things that aren't ready yet for 2110, so you end up with lots of little converters and things that you just can't quite figure out how to get from here to there. So my temptation would still be to probably, if you're going to do it in an IP based process, I would probably use NDI. And I probably wouldn't use NDI audio. I'd probably use things for what they're good at. So NDI for video, Dante for audio, that kind of thing to make that actually happen. But that's actually how I get stuff back and forth between my computers. So I've got about 6 computers on this desk, and I'm using NDI to get from one computer to the other, and Dante to get from the sound from one computer to the other. So that's exactly what I'm using to make that actually work. So, but I think that those would probably do you well for now. I think we're still in that transition space where nothing really makes sense, but those are probably the closest ones. Next question.
Coming in via the QR code, Ash in Marlborough, New Jersey asks, any recommendation for a non-headphone-based mic to use with a Mac Mini? I have external speakers connected to it and would like a recommendation for a USB microphone for Zoom calls.
Go ahead, Mitchell.
Yeah, we like the MV7 Shure mic. It also has a headphone jack on it because you can't introduce a microphone to an external live speaker. You're going to have problems. So the other way around that, if you don't mind muting those speakers and using the headphone jack on the MV7 or on the Apple, is use an interface. And there's a ton of them out there that'll work well with that.
Yeah, really try to not have open speakers. It really takes all the fun out of doing Zoom calls. So there are so many things about it. It's just, even if it works, it is doing something to your audio because it has to get rid of the other parts. And so it is not, if you're getting to a point where you go, oh, I really want a good mic and I really want my audio to be great, then the next thing you're going to want to do is have in-ear monitors. That's what I'm wearing here. These are not expensive. These are $50, whatever, Linsol SZ10s or something. They're not particularly expensive. But as soon as you start caring about it, you're going to start not wanting to have that loop there. And a lot of times also you'll hear it right at the very beginning. You'll hear someone talking, you'll hear a little bit of echo, and it's just a bummer. So I would really try to avoid open speakers. The in-ears take a little bit of time to get used to. I have to admit, I've had in-ears for so long that I don't think about it anymore. but in fact, I prefer them over almost everything else. But I think I know that some people have a hard time getting started. Andy?
I also don't like the fact that having speakers, it kills the full duplex nature, so that when people are talking, you hear them cutting off. Like as you just said, yep, you could say that while I'm speaking.
Exactly.
If you're using speakers, then you go half duplex, and that I don't like that.
Absolutely. Go ahead, Mitchell.
I want to reinforce what Alex was saying about in-ear. I've had a 40-year career in radio broadcasting, always wear headphones, and here on office hours I was forced to put inner ear monitors. It takes a little while to get used to them. Don't give up on them right away. Try them for a couple of weeks, and then you'll like them.
Next question.
Roscoe Jones, Madison, Indiana. Roscoe says, since we are in the 12th month of office hours, aka the upgrade month, might we do a review of this now classic Christmas song and see what swap outs or upgrades the panel might have for 2024?
Go ahead, Mitchell.
On the 12th day of Christmas, Andy gave to us an upgraded Zoom that doesn't make us fuss.
Yeah. There you go. I don't think that's So 12th month upgrades. I'm trying to think of the kind of things that I would be throwing in there right now. Go ahead, TJ.
Well, I have upgraded my camera actually to one that has full-time autofocus, so that as I'm moving around, as I'm apt to do in my seat here while I'm talking, hopefully it will be keeping me closer in focus. And if I have to show anything for the camera, it will zoom in and focus on that camera.
Yeah, I think that the Sonys are working really well. I think that I'm trying to think of other things. Right now, I'm slowly rigging up my iPhone. So I have this little rig. This is the small rig that I'm getting for my iPhone here. I just got this Moment. This is the Moment lens, which I wanted to see if it would actually work on the rig. But this is the 58 Moment lens. Now you may wonder, why do I need a 58 Moment lens when there's multiple lenses on the phone? It's because the highest quality chip is on the 1X, the 24 millimeter, and this converts the 24 millimeter to 58. Now I'm testing it. It works great. In case you're wondering, but you can't use it with the Apple phone. Well, maybe you can. It's much harder to use with the Apple camera because it automatically keeps on wanting to switch lenses, whereas if you go to the Blackmagic camera, you just go, I want that one. No matter what you set with the Apple camera, it seems to like you go 1X and it keeps on jumping around because the lens is on it. Go ahead, TJ.
Yeah, I was going to ask you how well that Moment lens worked, because I'm really interested in that, especially with the newer iPhone and, like you said, the one chip. What kind of reach do you get with that?
This one's just a 58, so it just gets it back to a more normal, a little less wide. So it's really like the 2X. It's really very close to the 2X. It's just a higher quality, but it means I can shoot 48 megapixel images on it, from that lens. The autofocus doesn't seem to work as well, so that's a little bit of a thing that I have to figure out. So that's the only thing that I would say is that I'm just getting started with it. I'm working on getting the nuclei from Tilta. So I'm really building out a full film rig on my iPhone. So that's a focus control for your iPhone that ties into the Blackmagic camera. I know it's a little over the top, but Next question.
From Tim Mann in Melbourne, Australia. Tim asks, is there any way of getting Apple compressor on Mac OS 12 without upgrading the Mac OS?
No. It's using, so the reason that the newest version needs it is because it's using libraries that are in 13. So I don't think you need 14 to use the newest version of compressor, but I do think you need 13. Go ahead, Chris.
I'm more interested in the origin of Tim's question. So why is he trying to put compressor on such an old machine?
Typically it's because you have some piece of software that hasn't been updated. It's probably made by Avid. Anyway, so, people with Avid were like stuck on Mojave for like a century. It was but basically it all comes down to, he probably has, I'm guessing that he has some piece of software that's written with spaghetti code, like literally spaghetti, that they just kind of formed into code. And they can't figure out how to upgrade it to the newest OS. So that he's stuck with it. That's my guess. Because there's no other reason to stay behind. 12 is, as Chris said, even for me, that's a long time ago. I'm still on 13. I'll probably move to 14 sometime in February. But 12 is old. Yeah, go ahead, Mitchell.
In a pinch, you could use something else like Sorensen or Media Encoder from Adobe.
On a Mac, on 12, I'd still rather use compressor. I don't think people have. I mean, I've been using compressor since version 1. I don't think anybody has. Most people who don't use it have no idea how powerful that app is. I mean, there is so many features built into that app, and there are so many things that it can do, and especially how it integrates with if you're using Final Cut or Motion or anything else. It is a pretty amazing thing. Yeah. Next question.
Via the QR code, John Failer from Greenfield, Massachusetts wants to know, having a physical Streamdeck on a KVM cable, any mid to long-term concern?
I don't know. I mean, Andy might be able to say whether he does that or not. Go ahead, Chris.
So this morning I'm on a new computer. Last night I rebuilt all my loopback nightmare, blah, blah, blah. This is a new computer, same cameras and stuff. What was interesting is it's a laptop, and it's a new, I call it the Black Book Pro, except I forgot to check the black checkbox, so I got a gray one, a silver one. My Streamdeck, I want to show you this here. My Streamdeck, here's the computer over here. For reasons, many reasons, my Streamdeck, it comes out of this USB-C through this port, through this A port. This is a cheap, blah, 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 like $50 port replicator. And my Streamdeck is way out here, and it works fine. And so it's going through this cheap splitter, this OWC hub, and then into the computer. So far, it's working.
It's no way to live. Anyway, go ahead, Andy.
I don't use a KVM with the Streamdeck, but there's a thing called satellite, Companion satellite. It allows you to hook up a computer with a Streamdeck and then run Streamdeck on a far away computer across a network. If you're looking to do something from a long distance, that's a good way to go.
I need to ask, what is a better way to live, Mr. Lindsay?
You need a hub with more. You need a hub with more I/O. Like, that's all I'm saying is there's hubs with more I/O that you can put in there. Putting two hubs on top of each other. That's like. I mean, I grew up where people would use duct tape to hold their doors on, and so they could open it and close it. And I think that you're getting very close to the computer version of that. So, but
I'd like
the key
to point
is to
out
get
my ATEM and my Mix Pre are plugged directly into the computer.
The key is to make sure the duct tape is the same color as the siding. I mean, that is really the key, is that you want to really get that finish. And if you use a box cutter, you can cut right down the edges so that there's no like rough edges. And from 15 feet away, you will have no idea that you're using duct tape to keep that door up there.
I would like to point out that Alex's favorite motivational tool is guilt and shame. And the phrase, "That's no way to live," that's like peak Lindsay,
direct assault.
Right there.
And then tying you back to my Appalachian, my Appalachian engineering. That's how I was brought up. That's all I'm saying. But I can put a bumper back on. I've proven though to my wife that I can put a bumper back on the car and drive it for another 6 months, and you won't know that it.
She must be so proud.
Off. She was both proud and scared all at the same time. Next question.
Hasmuk Gajar from Cape Town, South Africa. Hasmuk asks, many years ago, pre-office hours, Adam Christensen from Mac suggested the Audio-Technica AT2020 USB mic. Knowing what I know now, post-office hours, is there a place for this mic, or which instances could I find it useful?
It's not a bad mic. I've had a couple AT2020s. It's not a bad mic. It's not a great mic. It's kind of in between. I would use it for potentially comms. It's something that I don't think I would use it in a show necessarily. But it's not. It's also not a bad backup. I mean, it is a reasonably good mic. It's not anywhere near what most of us are using on a normal basis, and so, but it's not horrible. I guess that'd be the review. The review is not like we had to have a list of never buy this. You'll probably regret it. Not horrible. Okay.
That's no way to live.
That's no way to live is down below. Never buy that. So anyway, so it's okay. I think that using it for comms as our backup mic or some kind of travel mic is probably the way you may want to think about it. But it's a pretty thin sounding mic when you compare it to a lot of the mics we're using typically for the show. Next question.
Andy Korkendorfer from Viera, Florida asks, I want to experiment with 2.39:1 aspect video recording. Is an anamorphic lens worth the hassle, or is cropping full frame 4K just as good? Thanks.
my first question will be why. Like 239. I mean, I get the whole like anamorphic thing. You get the nice little long highlights and so on and so forth. Specular highlights coming from the lights and stuff like that. That's really cool. But who's going to watch it and where are they going to watch it? And are you taking resolution away from them to watch it? I have to admit that. I mean, I don't really. I know that I'm not, unless you're going to put it on a giant screen that's super wide angle, I don't know why I would want to deliver to a digital screen, a 239, where I'm essentially just taking away that view from the viewer. I know filmmakers are probably going to be really upset with what I just said, but it's just like, I mean, for me, I'm just like 16:9 is what everybody's screen is set to. So I'm just going to do that. I kind of like when people do ultra wide shooting, I'm a little bit annoyed at home, because that's the first thing I'll say. Second thing is, if you're going to do it, you will get, it has its own look. So if you're doing 239, it has its own look. And you can reproduce, it will not be the same to crop it as to do anamorphic, because it's the coating on the anamorphic lens is going to have a different effect on your lights are all going to, if you see that typical Star Trek, I used to have to add anamorphic highlights to my shots. So I was doing, shots, and for when we were doing episode 1, we'd have the shots, and when the specular highlight hit full tilt or you had lights, we would add this highlight that then was stretched out that went to blue, as it went out. So we were paying attention to a lot of that, and that'll happen obviously naturally. If you use an anamorphic lens, you'll typically see that kind of highlight based on that stretch. But it's I guess I'm going to keep on coming back to why, because I know that people want to do the wide angle thing, but you're just taking screen real estate away from the viewer for 99% of the people that would watch what you're doing. Next question.
Paul Walhus from Hot Springs, Arkansas asks, are there any clever ways to stretch all kinds of cords other than pulling them and running them through your hands?
Go ahead, Andy.
I guess if you mean by cords, you mean multi-cables, mic cables, things like that.
Yeah.
Take them out to the back, take them out to the parking lot on a hot summer day, and let them cook until they're nice and soft. I think you guys actually had a long talk about this on Office Hours one time.
We did. I think we did talk
really
about
long
it.
Talk about it.
we got into it. I still tend to pull them through my hands at least once or twice before I cook them on the asphalt. Mostly because it's not so much stretching them as it is uncoiling them. It's getting anything that's coiled up in there out of it, and so you'll see it spinning, and that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to spin around and get it back to one straight thing, and then heat it up to get any of the wrinkles out. And then I usually bring them back in and let them sit for a second before I roll them up. That way, because if you roll them when they're hot, they'll then have memory of what you did then. so that's the other way to do this is just to do it at 3:00 in the afternoon and then wait until the sun starts to go down. They'll cool on their own in the parking lot, and then you can roll them up. Yeah, go ahead, Chris.
Paul's specifically talking about stretching, and I would not recommend like trying to use a 20-foot cable to go 21 feet. I'd buy the 25-foot cable.
If he really means stretching, then I would not do that. But yeah, there you go. But yeah, the hot asphalt works exceptionally well. I can do it. I find I can do it on my deck as well. I do it. I have a pretty long deck across the back of my house, and so I can do about a 50-foot. Maybe I can get up to 75 feet to cables, where I just run them along there, and you'll see 5 or 6 of them out there when I'm cleaning to let them sit and bake in the sun. Next question.
Joaquin Matus in Imperial Valley, California asks, what is the preferred AMI and instance type for vMix instances in EC2 nowadays?
Whoa. I don't know if we have anybody here. That's like a Jeff.
It's like throwing a Cochrane.
Yeah. I think Joaquin. I think that you would have to. I think you above my pay grade on that one. So
Cochrane cushion.
Yeah, exactly. So ask that one again. You have to kind of see with some of the folks that are doing some of the heavy cloud stuff. Usually they're here on Fridays, and it's Friday before Christmas. I think everybody's out shopping. So I don't know if we have an answer for that. If you, by the way, if you have questions, for us, you can throw those questions in at officehours.global. That's officehours.global, or you can throw them into Makana. We've got a little more time. We may start the second hour a little early because we've got a lot of questions stacking up for Andy. So we may do that as well. So, but little last minute here, if you want to put any more questions in before we get to the second hour, go ahead, Chris.
This is the next question, right?
Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry. Next question.
Should we read the question? Let's do things, let's do things the normal way.
Chris, I think you should answer the question.
Because that's no way to live, what you just did there.
Exactly. I think you should just answer the question and we'll just move on. Like, we should do a whole show where...
it's Jeopardy. We answer questions. You try and figure out what the question actually was.
The viewer have to put in
I'm going to give you the
what
answer.
The question was. Yes. You should definitely use HDMI. 4K is the only way to do that. You should be at least 3 inches from the mic when you try to make that work. We should just.
By the way, this is what happens when there's not enough questions.
Exactly. We
just
start talking.
Thing, whatever you want to call it.
Whatever you want to call it. It's like, we're going to spin around in the yard. All right. Next question.
Matthew LeCount from Oakland asks, on the topic of compression, can multiple machines be networked to create a small render farm with compressor or resolve?
Go ahead, Chris.
Oh, here we go. So yes, you can, but I'll tell you this: when this feature came out in compressor years ago, I was super excited, and I ran around the office and I turned on the stuff on all the machines. Like, we're going to use this machine, and then I hit compression execute or whatever, engage on the machine that was starting the compression, and what I watched was the inefficiency of taking data, breaking it into little packets or frames or whatever, sending it around the facility on the network, having a machine there do something, and then send it back and having to recompile it. Was it faster? Maybe. Maybe it was a little faster, but the overhead of the management of the process it seemed to take away from the joy of just a super fast compression. And I try it every couple of years to see if it's gotten a lot better, and it hasn't. So I just don't even bother with it.
I think that the challenge really right now is that to your point, the processors have gotten so much better, and most of our networks have not. So our networks are still, most of us are sitting on 1 gig or 10 gig networks, and our processors are screaming fast. And you're absolutely right that there was a time when, like for instance, I remember a time when we would have a 1 hour I need to compress something that's 1 hour long, and I would with single pass compression, it would be 1x. Like in 1 hour, I can take this 1 hour video and I can turn it into a 1 hour. In 1 hour, I can give me an H.264 or whatever. That's now down to like 10 minutes. Like it just happens, And so I was doing something last night. I was compressing something very old, and I thought, oh, well, this will take 2 or 3 hours. I'll go work on something else. I look back and like 15 minutes later, it was gone, and that was not even over what I considered a pretty slow drive. So it's the technology's changed a lot. I don't know if Resolve will distribute it. Compressor definitely will. You can build, there's nodes. If you go into the preferences, you'll see the ability to add nodes to that process. But I will admit that I have not done that for a long time. There used to be a problem with compressor is that if you had multiple processors, multiple cores, you could address all those cores and it would lock up your machine. So that's why, if you're wondering why can't I have only 2 if I have more cores, it's because people like me figured out how to strike the machine by doing that. Yeah, go ahead, Chris.
So I do use all the cores. I always set up 4 instances, and even my multi-pass compressions are doing faster than real time. It's super fast. The other thing I'll say this is there is a segment of our industry, and I'm going to guess it's probably high-end filmy type people who will, instead of compressing a video file into a video file, what they'll do, or rendering, they'll render out frames instead of an MOV. And that tends to be a bit more efficient because you can just render out all your frames. And then what you're going to end up what you're going to end up with is a folder that has one frame for every frame of your video, but then you have to do one more step to actually composite that into a movie, which is pretty quick. But again, that's like I bet you that's how Alex did Star Wars when he worked on Star Wars. Is that what you guys did? Render frames and then composite them together? Compile them?
Yeah, so we would do quick times for all the reviews, but once we did the render, you would render them out in frames, and then we would deliver those to the team. There was actually a Unix Unix thing that we would do that would push there was a Unix and there was some kind of interface that we used to basically push all those frames over for film out, because those had to be sent to be written one frame at a time to film. So the very last thing that we would do was send it out to film out. But before that, it was all you are right. We would render them to frames and then we'd bring them into Commotion. Commotion back then was the thing that you would use to look at your frames. It wasn't called Commotion. It was called
Pandemonium.
Flipboard. So Flipboard was before it was Commotion. Scott Squires had this thing that he wrote called Flipboard, and you would render out your frames, and it would play back full res on your. It would load all the frames as long as you had enough RAM. It would load all the frames into RAM, and then it would play them all out in real time, so you could see them. There was no other way to see full res on your Mac in 1996. So the Flipboard was the thing, and then that became Commotion. Then they started adding tools where we could cut things out and so on and so forth. Next question.
Tony Mobley in Newman, Georgia says, I got a new switch. I'm thinking of adding my Raspberry Pi back into my setup. Any suggestions from the panel? Do I need to add the ATEM Mini?
I would add the ATEM Mini to it. So I would add an ATEM Mini because that way you can control it through Mix Effect Pro. So I would definitely put the ATEM Mini on it, and I would definitely think about putting the Raspberry Pi back on. So if you've got the extra ports, those are useful little boxes. So especially if you're doing something like Playout B. Next question.
I have a question from me. Once every 2 weeks, my UPSs click onto battery, but my house has not lost power. Do they do this to keep fresh?
Go ahead, Mitchell.
TJ, that's perfectly normal with an APC. Mine does it all the time, sometimes with the beep and sometimes without. But primarily, it does a self-test and checks the battery and makes sure it can still hold a charge. And it will also let you know when the battery is time to be replaced, which I hate getting those messages. And the other thing is it could be going in and filling in for a sag or a surge on the power line. Occasionally, I get those maybe somewhere on the power system. They switch to a different transmitting station for power. It seems to kick off my UPS also. Same thing, APC.
And I will say that generally when I've had it, it's become something that there's unstable voltage somewhere that's a minor unstable thing that's going on. I very rarely hear my APCs go off. I can't actually remember the last time I heard them click over. Go ahead, DJ.
Yeah, I guess I have 3 in my room here, and I hear the one on this side of me click on, and about a minute or so later, I'll hear the other one click over, and then the other one clicks on, and I'm like, well, they're on 2 different circuits, but I'm like, the house still has power, so I'm like, okay.
Yeah, not sure. Next question.
Laura Thompson from Beaumont, Texas asks, hey, Brian, welcome back. What have you been up to that you can talk about?
Brian?
Well, I guess that means I have to talk.
Yes.
Since I've had literally no answer to anything whatsoever that has happened up to this point. But I can answer this question. Actually, it's funny, the things I can talk about. That's always a fun. There's another group Discord channel that I'm a part of that posts office pics of, everybody hanging out at their concerts doing their things. And at one point I just posted a big white border or a big white background that just said NDA on the middle of it, because that's pretty much the definition of my life. I will say I did do a thing on a cruise ship where they christened the cruise ship. That was weird and interesting. First time I'd worked on a cruise ship. First time that, and it was the first time it had been sailed. So that was interesting. But mostly just, doing things. I did a bunch of economic summits, none of which I can talk about. Did lots of government things, none of which I can talk about. Lots of corporate things, none of which I can talk about. Welcome to my life. There's a reason why basically the only thing that's ever on my Facebook page is just bad memes that I created and pictures of my cats.
Yeah. Yeah, go ahead, Chris.
While we're welcoming Brian back, I just want to say I just got a text message from Mr. Preto, and he said, "I'm listening. John, we miss you. Please come back quick."
Can't wait to have you back, John. Next question.
Chad Lafarge from Columbia, Missouri wants to know, I'm playing with vMix to stream both horizontal and vertical formats at the same time. What is the best compromise in overall resolution to achieve good results in both streams?
We're typically, when I do that, I'm typically doing a 4K stream. So I do a 4K output, and then I'm cutting into the 4K, and that way you're going to get full resolution on both that you're doing there. So that's the way to do it. The really tricky part of the whole thing is the center, what you're centering. So are you going to center the entire time? There's some tools that are starting to come out that people are playing with. I don't know if they're public yet, that kind of follow along the subject in real time, that track the subjects so that you can say keep a center crop for a 9:16 as someone's walking around. But I don't know if those are released yet, but people are thinking about it. And so there's a couple different companies that are doing that. And so that's and you can see some of those tools, in things like TikTok and so on and so forth for the post stuff. So anyway, those are some of the things that you can look at. That's the harder problem. Streaming 4K and doing a center cut is not typically hard. And I'm about to you'll probably see me, now that things are slowing down a little bit for next week, you'll see me, of course, start doing more testing. So Instagram now has RTMP, so I'll be testing on Instagram, and I'll probably actually do some public streams just to see how it goes. Next question.
Matt Cool from Montreal, Canada. Any suggestions for a techie gift for the non-tech people in our lives?
Go ahead, Mitchell.
I would give away a Chris Fenwick Pez dispenser.
There you go. I think that the things that are techie in my house that the non-techie folks in my house use a lot are things, the thing that probably changed the way we eat more than anything else, the two things, I'll say three things. There's a rice cooker, the Zurishi rice cooker or whatever. We went from eating no rice to rice is something that you eat all the time. Because you don't think about it. You put a cup in there, you put water in, you shut the thing, you push a button, and it sings a little song, and then a little while longer it sings another song, and when it sings the second song, your rice is ready, and it's perfect every single time. And I didn't know about rice cookers until I spent 6 weeks in Japan, and it was just in my apartment, and got really used to it. And it's just the fact that you can make it, you can make rice all the time and you don't think about it. You don't have to worry about it and so on and so forth. It's pretty amazing. Yeah. Go ahead, Chris.
At our house, right inside the front door, we have one of these IKEA cubbies. It's like four cubbies wide by 4 cubbies tall. And I put one of those, a USB charger, block, that has 6 or 8 ports on it. And I put there a few iPhone cables and an Android cable because my wife refuses. And then, they have other ones. There's a cable to charge our little USB speaker and, the vape pens and everything. And it's just a place. It's just a place to put everything. And I'll say that there's a plus side to it. People tend to put their phones down to charge them, and they're not in their hands. And you get to actually interact with human beings instead of people sitting around doom scrolling on the couch.
Yeah, it's funny, in my family, there's kind of a culture of not using your phone when you're watching TV. It's a very interesting thing. Nobody does it. When we sit down and we just sit there and watch TV. We don't watch TV very much because we don't do both. I will say this, chargers are a good thing. And these NGAN chargers are what you want to put in every room because they just charge everything really fast. So that's another piece. The other thing is I have an Apple speaker, one of the larger Apple speakers in the kitchen, and it gets used all day. I know people make fun of Apple's that speaker. I'm not really ready to put a Google or Amazon speaker in pretty much anywhere where I'm talking. Just in case you're wondering. So the Apple speaker is the one that is on and plugged in, and it is that gets used a lot from a techie. And I have little ones. I have 2 little ones right here. And when I want to listen to music in my office, I just send the audio to them, and I got stereo sitting on my desk, and it's not connected to the rest of my network, and it's just really easy to kind of turn on. So those are pretty useful there. The other thing I was going to say is we got a June oven, and the June oven gets used all day. Like, people are putting stuff in it all the time. Like, I wasn't sure if we'd use it, so I was like, this is a lot of counter space to put something, but all the time. Like, and we barely ever use the stove anymore. I mean, barely ever. We do use the oven. There's things it doesn't do as well, but we don't. It dropped to like 95% of being able to hit the little button and program what you want, and things come out the other end. So, yeah, go ahead, Chris.
A couple things. Number one, so you have 2 of the speakers, and they're paired together.
I have 2 little ones in my 2 Apple speakers in my.
So you can hear it in stereo.
Yeah, you can pair them
because you can do stereo in your Mix Pre too. What was the charger? What was the charger you said? NGAN?
Oh yeah, these are NGAN. If you do a search for NGAN chargers, you'll see them.
Can you spell NGAN?
NGAN. NGAN.
So take the E off the beginning.
Yeah. I think we've talked through.
I will try.
We told you enough tips for Christmas, but there you go. We'll talk about it again. And again, yeah, those are high performance. Like, mine are like 240 watt. Most of the ones I buy are 240 watt chargers, and they are life changing. You can run your laptops off of them. Next question.
From Jack Cannon in Phoenix, Arizona. Interviewing an executive who wants to be interviewed in their office. I need at least 30 minutes to set up, but I'm probably not going to get it. What tips and tricks do you have for setting up quickly solo?
TJ?
Get help. You want help. You will need help in order to pull this off. Get 2 friends to help you out. If, whatever you can do, buy them a beer afterwards to get help, and then rehearse. You're going to need to kind of get an idea of the setup of the office and where the desk is and where you're going to be able to put everything. If you can get into the office ahead of time to get a sense of the layout, that's even better. But rehearse so that you come in and put things there. Your other people come in and put things where they need to go, so you can get that all put in a very short time frame. Having worked with executives in the past, they are very impatient and very intolerant of you taking up any more of their time than you need. You will need help.
Yeah, and I would try to find a way that you might be able to get more time. 30 minutes I would consider like bare minimum. Like, why bother? Like, why bother if you're going to get a bad video of the person? I'm sorry, but I just I would really go back to them and go, it'd be, we wanted to make sure it looks good. It's worth the time to put it together. You might as well just kind of go in with a camera, like go in with an A7S III or whatever, set it to really short depth of field and do the best you can. You might be able to bring a little light in and just set it up. I mean, but you're not going to get, something that looks like what people are used to for interviews in 30 minutes. Like, that's not how, when we set those things up, I do a lot of those. That's 4 hours. Like, it's 4 hours. Is that, that's what it takes us to get it just right. And we've got little lights going up on one side, and we've got things, and it's soft and everything else. Now, typically, we don't do it in their office. We do it in an office that looks like their office. So what we look for is, hey, do you have another office that we can use that's similar to the CEO's office? Or we try to get it first thing in the morning so that we can show up at 4 o'clock in the morning, and they show up at 8:30 or whatever, and we're all set up. And then we do the interview. They go out and get a coffee, and we strike in 15 minutes. Like, striking is quickly is easy. Setting up and doing it is hard. So a lot of times we try to get like a 4 a.m. load in to do that, or we try to do it over their lunch break. So they're going to go out for lunch if they do that, and then we try to get in. But try to find times when you can get it done. I would say that it's really hard. The big thing is just if you're going to only have 30 minutes, obviously it's going to be nearly ENG style. You're going to come in with lights that you're going to set up maybe on a stand. Use a full frame sensor because you just want to blur everything out because it's not going to look good. So try to make sure that you just want to blow everything out and do the best you can. Next question.
Tommy Chans from St. Paul, Minnesota wants to know, are Mac Minis the preferred Zoom computer, or are MacBook Pros or MacBook Airs the go-to for building kits?
Go ahead, Mitchell.
Mostly see Mac Minis of various flavors, everything from Mac M1 Silicon, which I've got sitting over here. Maybe there's a few Intel units out there. I think it has to have 4 cores before Zoom will accept it. So you've got a big range of minis that you can use. Yeah,
the reason that we tend to use minis for these kits is because we can put them into boxes. You don't have to open them up or try to figure out where to put them and everything else. And they have a lot of ports and they're not very expensive. So they're the same capacity to do a Zoom meeting for a Mac Mini is it's $500 or $600 or whatever it is. If we get something else, it can be broken. The screen can be broken. You have to open it up. You have to figure out where to put it. Now, my personal kit that I use is using a MacBook Pro because it's easier to set up. And we do have some kits that we've sent out that way because it's a little less. There's no screen, there's no things, and so it just depends on the kind of kit that you're actually building. But I would say the Mac Mini is more cost effective most of the time for what we're doing. Next question.
From Tlaluk Lopez Waterman in Bernburg, Germany. Has anyone done an aftermarket autofocus for Blackmagic cameras? Is that even possible?
It is. There is actually an iPhone app that will tie into your I haven't gotten around to testing it yet, but there's an iPhone app that via Bluetooth will tie into your that you can sync up with your sensor. You kind of put it next to your camera and it will talk to the camera and do autofocus for it. I don't know. I'm not it won't be like the Sony, but it will be probably better than what just pushing autofocus all the time on your ATEM Mini. So that's one way to do it. The other way to do it is to get Cine lenses. So either you can get Cine lenses or you can get little things that'll go onto your lenses with gears, and those gears can be there, and then you can use motors. And so you can use things like a DJI will have a motor. Red Rocks Micro has motors. Preston obviously has motors. It's a little expensive, but you can put those motors on. So you can put a railing system out the end of your. You put rails underneath, and you attach these motors to the lens. And then there's all kinds of focus systems that are using LiDAR, that are using a variety of other things that will do the range finding and make that happen. Someone's got an open mic and they're typing or doing something. Next question.
Tony Mobley from Newman, Georgia. Is Brian using AirPod Pros? What is his audio interface?
Brian, what is your audio interface?
What is my audio interface? So, I almost mentioned something earlier about somebody was asking about open speakers and microphones and this and that's and whatevers. And I like to use my AirPod Pro just for the listen side, just as my IFB. And the reason I do is because I can put it in transparent mode and it feels as if I don't have anything in my ears. I don't have any occlusion effect. I don't have any of the typical things you get with headphones. So I'm not isolated, but yet I can still hear. But my actual audio path going out is just shotgun mic through an XR18, traditional microphone kind of thing.
Next question.
Douglas Carmichael asks, ESPN did a Toy Story football special that was synchronized in real time with the actual game. Could you use Unreal Engine for such a workflow with custom plugins to take in the tracking data?
Toy Story football? ESPN did it to synchronize with the real time? I'd have to see. I don't know what Toy Story football means, but I will say that a lot of the tracking data is getting pretty cool. I know that in the second feed for Monday Night Football on ESPN with the Manning brothers, they are showing the plays. They're replaying the plays on a digital field, and it's stunning. Like I was just kind of Peyton Manning was picking up moving people around and stuff like that, and showing things and everything else. And it's funny that show has. The show that the Manning brothers, I would definitely watch it if you're thinking about broadcast. It's gone from being a bit of a joke to it was a horrible show when they started. Like it was just frustrating to watch, and I could only watch it for a couple minutes. And now it's probably better than the actual football game coverage, because what they did is they stopped trying to be funny. They stopped trying to bring in all these guests. They stopped trying to do all this other stuff. And they just started being inside football. Like, I'm going to just talk like two brothers that actually played national football at a very high level, talking about the plays and doing things. And now they're getting graphics, and now they're getting other things. And so I think that they're finding their footing there. Yeah, go ahead, TJ. You were going to say something?
Yeah, there was, real quick. It was just they were using real-time video capture, and they were projecting it into the child space bedroom in Toy Story. They had the field as the rug in the room.
Oh, got it. Okay, but they weren't using it. They weren't doing real-time 3D.
Yes, it was real-time 3D render from the players on the field.
Yeah, it can be done. I mean, it's definitely, because you can rig it up in a certain way there. Quick reminder, we're about to jump into talking about Companion. Quick reminder that we'll have a volunteers meeting tomorrow at 9 a.m. So if you are a current volunteer or thinking about being a volunteer, you're more than welcome to sit in, and we'll be talking about all the opportunities that are coming up. So stay tuned for the second hour. And today we're going to be talking about Companion. And, Companion is something that we're seeing a lot of. A lot of us are, I'm playing with it. I will admit, I'm not a Companion expert. I play with it a little bit, but I don't use it as heavily as I should. And so I'm really excited about this hour because I should be using it more. But a lot of productions are using Companion heavily. And we have a great expert, Andy Broughton, here. Andy has a little bit of something to show us. Andy, how did you get started in Companion? Before you get started with your little demo there, or your demo, how did you get started in Companion?
I think actually Brian was the first. Probably Brian said, "Hey, have you heard about Companion?" And I said, "No." And I just sort of started doing some research, looked into it. This is at the start of the pandemic, when everybody had lots of time, and I got on there. They have a Slack group that I joined and started talking about what they could do. And I knew some stuff about automation and how to control products, but I didn't know about Companion. So I learned a lot about Companion. And it's an amazing community of programmers, and it's open source, it's free. And that's how it all started. And then once I was in there, I was hooked. And most people, once they start playing with it, it becomes a lot of fun, and it's very addictive.
And I understand you have a little bit to show us. So go ahead and show us what you have, or how to get started with it, at least.
Sure. Can I share my screen?
You sure can. And while Andy's sharing his screen, a quick reminder that after this show, in after hours, Andy's going to jump in there and continue to talk about this. So as you're listening, throw your questions in. There's got a lot of questions starting to stack up, but Andy's going to be available in after hours to answer your questions and continue to talk about this. So just as a note, that you might want to schedule some time for that. And Andy, we lost your video, but we do see your screen capture. So there's a.
Okay.
I think you might have a picture-in-picture on that.
If I do this, does that make it better?
Yep, makes it much better.
Okay, so I shouldn't do the little. I see people putting themselves in the corner. I thought, well, that'd be cute. I'll just do that. No,
not so much. No, ours it's mostly they do that because they don't have two video feeds like we do. Anyway,
understood.
Yeah, go ahead and jump in. Yeah.
Sure. So basically, I wanted to show you a little bit about one of the modules that I created for the Yamaha devices, Yamaha mixers, and a lot of Yamaha products use a very similar command protocol called RCP. So this is just a little demo of the module that I made. And I just wanted to say before I started that all Companion stuff is kind of a collaboration between three things: Bitfocus Companion, the program, the main program itself, what the device can do, what the device is capable of that you're controlling, and then whatever the programmer decides he wants to implement or allow to happen or do it in a particular way. It's very, very flexible. So every module is quite different. So this one I was going to show that has a function called macros. So really easy way to create your actions without having to go into the GUI and make actions from scratch. So if I were to press and hold this first macro button here, it'll turn green, tell me it's ready, it's cleared itself. And then when I hit it again, it starts recording. So this is much like a MIDI learn type of thing. If you've ever worked with MIDI at all, it told me that I just did 3 different things at once. And if I press the button again, it's now recorded. And if I go back to the default, press the button, it'll just do the 3 things that I told it to do. So that's a really easy way to go, well, what can I record? What can I do? And how can I create a function? Another sort of setup here that I did was the ability to control multiple things. So this is, for example, 8 monitor mixes. So I can select the people that I want to adjust the mixes to. And if you ever do, I don't know if how much live music you do, but if you do end up with a situation where you're going, ask the people, what do you want? Who wants bass drum in their ears or in their monitors? And you select the people. I say these 3 people. I select the channel or channels that I want to actually adjust, and then I turn the knob here, and you can see down in the bottom in this screen down here, you can see the level going up and down for those 3 particular people. And if
and in this case, what you're doing in Companion is it's selecting all of those so that you can adjust them at the same time. You're still adjusting something. You're not using Companion to adjust the levels. You're using it to select everybody. You can say, okay, I want this person, this person, this person, and then I'm checking the levels, or are you actually changing the levels inside a Companion?
The thing you can't see is I have a Streamdeck Plus in front of me. So I'm turning the knob on the Streamdeck Plus to adjust the level up and down. And you notice it's a relative level. So it ends up that no matter where they were, it's only going up and down by 1 dB.
And is that Streamdeck Plus using Companion as well?
Correct.
So those encoders, the 4 encoders that go across the bottom of the Streamdeck Plus, those are tied to the faders on the mixer. Is that what you're?
Kind of, yeah. It's one of the things I want to talk about if we get time is how more advanced setups in Companion use variables, triggers, things like this. So this, to be completely clear, this knob is changing a variable, and then that variable is changing several things at once on the Yamaha console. And I have a Yamaha console connected, which of course you can't see, but you can see the editor. So it's a bit convoluted, and that's one of the things I hope to go into is how do you do these more advanced things where you can.
Right. Well, and so just so I understand what's happening here, so you have one Streamdeck that is selecting. This is a 32. This is an XL or whatever.
No, it's just a single Streamdeck.
Okay.
Plus.
So I was looking at the windows here, the things, and I was thinking, you're using a 32. So those buttons are all on you're showing them via screen right now, but what they actually are is those are sitting on the Streamdeck Plus. Correct. Those are the buttons. You're pushing the buttons on the Streamdeck Plus and then turning the encoders to make the adjustments.
Exactly. Sorry, I should have mentioned that. I'm giving you a view through what's called the emulator on the screen, so that you can see an emulation of what I'm doing at the same time. So that allows you. It's just a way you can see that you can make you can do a bunch of things at the same time. And this one here is a quick demo of being able to do sort of multiple things at once again.
And this is still using the Streamdeck Plus, or is it a
correct?
Yep. Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yep. So this is just a demo of how you do several things at the same time. Again, just being able to more information about getting stuff back from the mixer. So if the device you're controlling has enough data and feedback, you can have it fill information in on the Streamdeck. So as I'm changing channels here, it's telling me the name of the channel, giving me the color, and as I change the mix number, it's telling me the name and the color, and also telling me what the send level is to that particular mix. Again, I'm turning the knobs on the Streamdeck Plus to change these values, and you can see them on the screen down here. Yeah. You can see that value going up and down. Then I have a thing called set default level, which if I decide I want to just have a number that I want everybody to go to, I can press that. It puts the level to 0. And if I hit it again, it goes to minus infinity. And if we decided, 0 is not the default level I want, I'm pressing and holding this top button while I change this number, let go of it, and now that's the new default. So whenever I press it, now it becomes minus 10. So these are some really advanced things that you can do with Companion, especially in version 3. Version 3 has so much more stuff that you can do. And there's one more thing I want to show you, and then I'll stop talking. We got let's go here, and this one, and this one, and this one, and get myself to where I want to be. And I'm going to show you what the latest thing I've added here is metering. So this is looking at what's called a Keo preamp, and it's showing me the volume levels in several different ways. A stereo volume level, a stereo meter, I should say volume meter, showing me monometers and outputs, and I can adjust the gain of that preamp. It's a TO preamp, a Yamaha product. And something that's kind of cool that I did in this one is that it's showing me how much headroom I have left. So as something gets louder, I'm getting less and less headroom. But as I drop it back down again, it's staying at whatever level I had it. If I reset them, it shows me again that it's sort of a always level. And if I crank the gain way up, it does something really, I've set it up to do something very interesting. It shows me the clip that, big lights that say clip. And no matter what happens, I could go back at any time, even if I didn't happen to notice that something was clipping, go, at some point in my event, those two channels clipped, and they don't reset until I press the buttons to reset them. And
where is it getting the data?
Right from the mixer. So the mixer has a lot of communication it can do back and forth. You can send data, you can send commands to it, but it also sends commands back if you ask it to. So essentially, one thing you may not have noticed is when I make it clip, you'll notice that it automatically is dropping the volume back down to take itself out of clip. So it's, again, this is a complex setup I've done within Companion, triggers and variables to do some automation of its own. So this is something I like to talk about. And how you automate things.
Yeah, because I think that what's interesting about that is that it's, I think a lot of us that are using Streamdecks are just having it do a command, right? You push, if you take the Streamdeck stuff that's there, you're just pushing buttons. Like, I want it to do this, I want it to do this. That's how I use my Streamdeck. I want to change colors, I want to do this, I want to do that. And I don't think about it as much as like in Companion, you can be building very complex relationships between getting data and moving it. It's really in a sense, would you agree it's kind of a programming language that happens to pop out onto the screen?
It can be, and the great thing is you can have different devices talk to each other in some ways. So you can have something that's saying, "Oh, I'm on, or I'm muted," let's say, and you can press a button and change something else based on that information. So these are the triggers where, if I see this signal, I want it to do something else. So this makes for some very advanced things where one button will do a lot of things, or Companion can do things on its own. And these are some of the advancements in version 3 that just were not possible. I've talked to some people in the industry, and they're saying, "Oh no, I'm still just using version 2. It works fine. I don't want to change." Well, great, but
what
you're missing
really
out.
changed with what really changed with version 3?
So version 3, one of the biggest changes was that they separated the modules, and they run in their own space, so that if a single module crashes, it won't take down all of Companion. In the past, if you had crashes of any kind or a problem with any module, it would take down all of Companion. And more importantly, you can actually add and subtract modules dynamically now. If somebody has a module that isn't part of Companion, you can add it yourself, more like a plugin. That's one of the biggest changes. There's a lot of changes, so I don't know how far you want me to go into that.
Oh yeah, a couple. If there's anything, but show us a little bit how do you put together one of these things? How do you put this together?
Okay, well, if I was to show you an action, for example, so on the right, you're seeing how this action is created, and for example, the feedback. So the feedback is generally information coming back from the device. Actions are things that you send to a device. Feedback is what's coming back. So in this case, I've got a meter coming back from the device. So it's
and how do I know where to get to the meter? Is that something that is published? That's a published Companion library from Yamaha, or is that?
No, it's part of the Yamaha module that I created. So an easy way to do it is just to type in the thing you think it is. I type in meter, and it's going, okay, there's a couple of choices here.
And how do you get to the data from Yamaha, I guess is the question. Is it part of their API, or is it like how do you get that data from the mixer?
How do I know what the data is, you mean?
Well, where is it putting it? Where is it?
It's TCP. So it's TCP data. Some of the newer mixers are using some UDP data as well. Companion already has built-in OSC, UDP, TCP type
readers,
sockets, and you just utilize what's in there. So Companion is essentially you can write a module very simply within Companion because it has all the things you need. It has the way to create buttons, how to create text. All that stuff is done for you. So you just have to implement what's the message coming from the device and what's the message I want to send to the device. That's really the main part of it. And I know about that because I've been doing Yamaha control for forever and ever, 20 years or more. I've been looking at the data that Yamaha comes back and forth with.
That's great. That's great. We've got a bunch of questions stacking up, so I think we might jump into them. And
should I stop sharing then?
You can leave it up for right now. We can always cut back to it. So just it's easier if you just leave it there. But let's go ahead and jump into the first question.
John Foltz from Sealands Grove, Pennsylvania wants to know, can you explain how the HTTP request works? I'd like to use Companion to send data information to vMix.
Well, I could try. I guess that's one of those questions that I don't know that module.
Yeah, so. We can throw it to Chris. Chris?
Sure.
So there's kind of two things in this question. First is how HTTP requests work. So in Companion, there is a basic HTTP request module, which does that. It just does an HTTP request. So it's the equivalent of putting a URL into a browser. When you use that module, it executes that thing. You could use that to control vMix, but that would be a roundabout, complicated, unnecessary way of doing it. You would just use the way you would control vMix through Companion would be to add the vMix module to your Companion instance and to.
We lost you there, Chris. We muted you there. You got muted. Chris, we can't hear you. I don't know if you can hear us. Chris, can you hear us? I don't know. I think Chris might have lost his audio there. Yeah, go ahead, Samuel.
Yeah, well, I'll just step into it a little bit from the vMix side of the question. So what you can do here, if you see my screen, this is a website. It's actually a third-party website, but it has all the API commands here. So if you want to do something real advanced that isn't in the module in vMix, then you can just put in your IP address here and search the command, and then you set the different parameters as text boxes, and then what you do, you just copy this, and then you put it into the HTTP request. So I'll post a link in the chat.
Next question.
Zach Stahlsmith from Chautauqua, New York. I constantly use triggers in my workflow. One trigger might have 5 different items to launch, and actually only launches 4 out of 5 of them. What might cause this?
Go ahead, Andy.
I don't know specifically what might cause that, but this is the kind of thing that can happen from time to time, especially if you're using the beta version. And I always recommend highly that you engage the people that have created the module, or if it's a companion problem, engage with the companion people. They will, if you tell them about something or find a bug, generally they'll fix it right away. They will either answer and say why it can't be fixed, or they will just fix it right away. And that's something I really encourage people to do, is get involved with it. If you're having trouble or you're having problems, reach out to the particular person. And then I just wanted to say that if you need to know how to contact any person that's created a module, there's a little button. Can you see my screen at the moment?
Yeah, we'll
okay.
Up to it here.
There's a little button beside the name of each module with a question mark, and if you click on that question mark, it will give you help information, plus a way to contact the programmer for that particular module. So I recommend you take a look at that.
Do you ever need to put time, like kind of spacers to wait for something? So sometimes I know in other things that I'm working on, we'll send a bunch of commands, but sometimes you need to say, do these 4 commands, wait for, 80 milliseconds and then do the next one, or do these in a certain order and wait 10 milliseconds between each one. Do you ever have to space those out so that you don't get conflicts?
Absolutely. And a great way to figure out if that's where your issue is to use these logs. Each module has its own log, and you can bring this up. And you notice that it's just going crazy right now, telling me all the data that's coming from the mixer. So you can use that when you press your trigger to see what trigger went out, what message came back, and if at some point did the message maybe not leave, or did the message not come back, or did one get ahead of the other? You run into a timing issue. That using that log module or the module that's
and how do you,
the log
how do you
of the
add
module.
time to it? How do you add time to the processes?
That would be something the programmer would have to do. Oh no, actually, in a trigger you could do that yourself. You could put timing in for each trigger within the delays. There's delay sections for that.
Yeah, absolutely. Next question.
From the QR code, Michael Dickman from Munich, Germany. Anyone found a way to load ATEM Mini Settings by pressing one button? Right now, I need to manually load media player files each time after reboot, as ATEM Startup State does not save the media. Is it possible with Companion? If yes, how? Thanks.
Go ahead, Samuel.
No, I don't think there is a way to do it. Companion is like an IP-based control program, so you can't really load files into Companion, and I don't think you can run all the macros and the ATEM from a Companion, but I don't think that you can load it into. There's no interface for that.
Next question.
John Filer from Greenfield, Massachusetts. Should a Steam Deck be plugged into the same computer Bitfocus Companion is running on?
Go ahead, Andy.
Sorry, the question was the same question. You can, of course. It's always best if you can run it on the same computer. But there is a new program called Satellite that allows you to plug a Stream Deck into a secondary computer and then connect that computer via a network to the computer that's running Companion. That's great for doing something over a very long distance, because USB, connecting USB over long distances, it requires some additional hardware typically.
And do you, because will that work over a WAN as well? Can you do that over the internet, or is that really designed as an IP connection, within a building?
You can, if you're familiar with how to tunnel stuff or use VLANs. Or you can try something called Companion Cloud, which is just a new sort of beta product that's coming out, which is designed for that specific purpose, where you log into a site and that site will do the transfer over the internet, so you can run a Stream Deck locally over the internet to control something farther away. So it's kind of a beta program, but if you're interested in that, go to the Slack site and ask them about it.
Go ahead, Chris.
So obviously you can, you don't have to. One of the things that I do on our campus is I have a Companion server, which is just basically I have installed Companion on a box, and then I use the Companion satellite to plug in Companions all across campus. And so, we've got, I think in our main Companion instance, we have 3 Stream Decks plugged directly into it, and then there's probably another 4 or 5 that are connecting to it remotely over the network. As you said, Alex, I'm connected via VLAN from my office here at home to campus, and so my Stream Deck here can connect to that remote instance of Companion. And so I basically have my Companion buttons wherever I want them.
Next question.
Tlalok Lopez Waterman from Bensberg, Germany. I have had quite a bit of trouble using the Companion module for ETC EOS lighting consoles. What do people do when modules don't work for you and the developers are not responsive?
Go ahead, Andy.
Yeah, that's a problem. I was just going to say that you definitely want to try and reach the module developer. And if they're not available, you can go in the Slack group and just put a general question out to say, hey, is anybody having the same sort of problem? Hopefully somebody else may pick it up, because sometimes not one person just works on a module. Some modules are worked on by many different programmers. So perhaps somebody else can step in. You just got to let them know. And I think generally people will try to help.
If you know exactly where to send feedback, oftentimes you can also coordinate with us here in office hours, and then we can send them a lot of feedback all at one time. So I think we had one manufacturer who was not really paying attention, and we sent more feedback to them in 15 minutes than they had in the entire history of their company. So anyway, and then things move forward. So work with us. Like we'll find a way to get their attention. We just have to figure out, if we know that they're reading it, we can dump 50 to 100 requests in pretty quickly. Next question.
Michael Graves in Houston, Texas. Does anyone here use Companion for Pi to IP enable a Streamdeck?
Andy, have you done that at all?
I don't really understand the question. Do you?
Yeah, go ahead, Chris.
I have not. Basically, the question is that, like, if you take a Companion and you take a Pi and you kind of get your Companion Pi Streamdeck instance into a small form factor. That's kind of, I think, what he's hinting at. And I have not done that, but I know a lot of people do. The Companion and what you're doing with it is not super resource intensive. So, the Raspberry Pi 4 is more than capable of handling most of that data.
Next question. Go ahead, Andy. Go ahead. You're
I was going to say, I know what you're talking about. Yeah, Companion Pi is a little version of Companion that works on the Raspberry Pi. I personally have started using little Melee type computers instead
like
of Raspberry Pi.
Quieter 3s.
Exactly. I find the form factor better. They're Windows computers. They're easy to use. They're cheap, and Raspberry Pis weren't available for a long time. So I think the Raspberry Pi was a great thing at one point. I think there's better solutions now, but making something small and self-contained is a great way to go with Companion, I believe.
Next question.
Craig Kadoki from Toronto, Canada. What would be the steps I should take if I want to improve or create a new Companion instance? The one from my mixer is really basic, and I'd like more functionality.
Go ahead, Samuel.
What you really want to do is think about how you want it to function. And of course, it's an iterative process to build it. But you want to first think what you want to do, and then how you want to combine the buttons. And the beauty with Companion is that when you hit a button, it's cool, like to control one device, like ATEM at once. But if you can send a command like to 3 different devices at the same time with one button press, then it's really powerful. So the way I think of it is like that. I want, for example, I set up a few presets, and then I set up functions like to trigger this device, like for example, video playback. Turn on the video playback, and then I wanted the video to cut to the video playback on the ATEM. And then, for example, if I'm using vMix, then I'll send a command for vMix when the video is almost finished to cut back on the ATEM.
Andrew?
If the question is more about what the module's capabilities are, it's much like the other question when you have a module that's failing or having problems. Reach out to the developers, reach out to Companion and say, hey, I think that I would like to see some additional functionality. A lot of times people ask me about functionality with my module, and I'll say, well, that's as much as I can do with the Yamaha because that's all the protocol that's available. But if it's something that's possible, try to implement it. But yeah, have to communicate with somebody who can do that. Or there are people that are willing to make new modules for you, sometimes for cost, sometimes for free. So yeah, just join the community and talk about it.
Next question.
Zach Stahlsmith from Chautauqua, New York. I want to start using Companion Satellite. What advice do you have for getting that set up between my production gear and my remote location for full control of the gear?
Go ahead, Chris.
So for starters, just plug it in and start working. I mean, it's pretty. You want to get it set up on your local network first. So, install Companion Satellite on a computer, plug your Streamdeck into it, set your Companion settings to match your satellite settings to match your Companion, and make sure they talk back and forth. Once you've got that configured, that works. When you're talking about doing it from remote location, you need some sort of tunnel or VPN so that those two locations are on the same network, so that your Companion satellite computer can access the IP and ports of your Companion studio.
Next question.
Michael Dickman via the QR code in Munich. Companion triggers. If I have multiple conditions, are these and or connected? Does the trigger run only if both conditions are true, or is matching one condition starting the trigger? Same question for events. And or. Happy Christmas.
Andrew?
I should know the answer to this, but I believe it's and. But I would just test it and see to find out. And I know that this is a request that lots of people have had, is a little bit more ability to say, I want this or this or this, or this and this or this. That kind of flexibility is not really built in yet. But there are ways to work around that. Having one trigger another trigger is a way to do an OR. But I think to answer your question is right at the moment, I believe they're all ands, A and D. I don't know what you mean by an event. Unless you mean an action. It's the same scenario that everything is in the and at this point.
Go ahead, Samuel.
Yeah, I would just recommend to go into the documentation, the getting started in Companion. I was actually talking to Andy the other day, and I've been using Companion for quite a long time, and he showed me this here where you can go in and there's a lot of functions in Companion. So I would check out the getting started section.
Next question.
Douglas Carmichael asks, can Companion work with the Streamdeck mobile app?
Go ahead, Samuel.
Yeah, in theory it could. What you have to do is you have to run the Companion integration in Streamdeck instead of running it natively, and then you can open it just like on a normal Streamdeck. So I haven't used it, but it should work just like you use Streamdeck.
Next question.
Andrew Lipnick from San Francisco. Can Andy B's Yamaha module let you set a target input gain level on a mic input channel?
Go ahead, Andrew.
Yeah, as I demonstrated, it was taking the signal out of clip, and I think what he's looking at is could you have it sort of auto gain, and definitely that's just one more step. Press a button, have somebody talk, let go of the button, and it would set the gain for you based on the VU meters.
And are you doing that so the auto gain is being executed in Companion, not in the Yamaha as its own auto gain?
That's correct. Some of the newer Yamaha mixers have an auto gain function, so it wouldn't be necessary for those. But in the older Yamahas, that's not a built-in function. So yeah, you would do it using Companion.
Go ahead, Andy.
Yeah, sorry for the loaded question because I knew it could do this already. But I think the idea, the applications behind this could be a green room tool. And there might be those productions where the A1 is really busy and you don't get a chance to hear your talent before they come there. And when I do shows like that, my finger's on the fader because I want them to match level as soon as they hit the show. And also do all the other things that are required of me in that moment. So I'm thinking this might help in certain situations. Clearly, you need to have some agreement with your audio staff in terms of how you're going to do this and practice this. But it's a feature that I'm curious has some legs to it and might be incorporated into certain types of productions where you are able to prep your talent. Or those situations where they're only prepped just moments before they go on. That's really what I'm getting at.
Next question.
David Brady from New York City, New York. What are the port requirements using satellite? I have 2 computers on 2 VLANs at work and can't get satellite to work. Telneting to the host computer on the associated port works, so it isn't firewalled.
Good, Chris.
Well, Telneting doesn't guarantee that it works, that it's not firewalled. The port that Companion Satellite uses is 16622. So you'd want to verify that port is actually passing through the firewall and through the VLAN configuration. More than that, I've not done a ton of work with poking holes through firewalls to make it work, but 16622, and you can see that in your Companion instance in the settings. It will tell you what the satellite listen port is, and I'm not seeing a way to configure that, so that may just be what it is everywhere. I can change on Companion Satellite. I can change the port, but I don't see a way to change the port on Companion itself. So I think that's what it is. 16622.
Next question.
Josh Kaufman from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania asks, what are the reasons to graduate from the hybrid use of Companion inside the Streamdeck to migrating to native Companion support?
Go ahead, Andrew.
I believe it's more stable to just use Companion directly if you can. And because the different modules talk to each other, you can have them interact. So you get a lot more flexibility that way. When you use the plugin, I find that people do run into issues where they're just not as compatible as they should be. Now, there was a problem at one point where there simply was no companion module for certain things. I think Unity Comms was one of them. I don't know if there is a module now in Companion for that, but there was a time when you just had no other choice. But I believe if you can use Companion by itself, that's the best way to go.
Go ahead, Chris.
Yeah, absolutely. I from the get-go, anyone who asked that, like, don't go that route to begin with. Using Companion and the Streamdeck software together, it's kind of convoluted and it's kind of confusing. And if you're just starting out trying to learn this stuff, why make that? Use one or the other, and make it less confusing for yourself. And so if you're at the point now where you have done that and Companion has the modules that you need, I would go all Companion and just one way or the other. Straddling both worlds is funky.
Give up your weekend or give up a week and sit there and figure out how to get done everything you were doing in one place and another. Those are always things. It's like you just finally have to do it, but you kind of put it off as long as you possibly can. Next question.
LB Lopez from San Antonio, Texas. Has anyone been able to control the sidus link from aputure lights? I have a couple of lights that only control through the app.
Go ahead, Samuel.
Yeah, well, I'm not really familiar with these lights, but if this is like something that it can integrate with Home Assistant, then you can control lights from there. So what I have Elgato lights here, and then I have some Hue lights connected to a smart switch. So if you see the lights behind me, I can turn them on and off, and that's integrated within a Home Assistant. So if you can, there's different ways to integrate lights and smart switches, but most of them have been very unreliable for me. So the only real way to do this, in my opinion, is with Home Assistant and then connect it this way.
Next question.
From Josh Kaufman in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. What protocols can Companion take advantage of? What are some ways to control devices for which there are no integrations available presently?
Go ahead, Andy. Or Andrew.
You can control it over networks, obviously TCP, UDP, OSC. Those are the main ones. But there's also some protocols. I'm just looking on the getting started page of Companion, and HTTP is another way to control it. ArtNet, DMX, Rosstalk with a satellite, and there's also, using triggers, you could actually have one device control another device. And don't forget also is that you can have a emulator, so you can have a screen that's just connected to your tablet, connected to your computer, and just press the buttons on there without having any controller at all. And that allows you to be wireless. Like I do that with my phone all the time. Set up a Companion set of buttons and just be able to wander around and not actually have to have anything wired at all.
Now, I know that we've talked about using Raspberry Pis and PCs. Have you used Arduino at all with Companion?
I have not. I don't believe Arduino has enough power to run Companion.
Well, not to run it, but to maybe receive messages or other things, to do other things there.
Interesting idea. I do have Arduinos, but I have never tried that.
We had one where we had I think I've talked about this in the past, but we had a thing where if something was necessary, if something hit to the top, it would send a message to an Arduino, which then could send us electrical impulses. In this case, it was a solenoid for a trigger for a flamethrower. So anyway, but it was all tied in, but just being able to send commands out to it was the thing that was the easiest thing for us. Yeah, go ahead, Chris.
One of the really useful things I've found helpful about Companion is the HTTP ability to control Companion externally. So I have a bunch of like custom scripts, Python scripts that change my Companion using just basic HTTP requests. And kind of an interesting situation we had this past week. We were hosting a high school basketball tournament, and they were using our video feed and audio feed in Scorebug. And there was nothing we were producing. I just had a vMix computer turned on, gave them a video signal, and they were doing it. But I wanted a way for them to turn on and off the Scorebug if, for example, it was not working properly, things like that. And I'm like trying to figure out all these ways I could do it. And then I realized, well, I just have a Companion button that does that. And so I just created a website for them with a link to that HTTP command that turns that presses that Companion button. And so now they have a website so that they can turn things on and off, and all it's doing is remotely pressing buttons on my companion instance. And stuff like that to me is just super handy. You can kind of glue things together that weren't really designed to go together, but they can go. Yeah.
That's great. Yeah, good. Samuel?
Yeah, well, there's quite a few ways you can integrate other devices, but for example, there's a new plugin or a plugin that didn't work very well before that is recently updated. It's called
that makes it a
Mini
new
Relay.
plugin. It's a new plugin when it actually works. Go ahead,
It's a new plugin for me because it didn't work before very reliably. It worked like 50% of the time at the most. But MIDI Relay is you can control MIDI devices. So I have like the Flow 8, which can receive MIDI commands. So now I've started using it with my Flow 8 to control that. Also, you can keyboard shortcuts is a big thing. If you can use Vicreo hotkey and control even on another computer, you can send like keyboard commands and kind of control software that way. The other thing to Alex's question about Arduinos, I've actually done this with OSC. It's I've used it's not like an Arduino, but it's an Arduino based board. The ESP8266, I believe. It's like a Wi-Fi chip, and I send OSC commands both ways, so it works.
Oh, that's fantastic. Yeah. Devices that only work 50% of the time are really more viruses. Viruses that look, or maybe a Trojan horse. Next question.
Michael Tan from San Diego, California. Any panelists tried other controllers other than the Streamdeck for Companion?
Go ahead, Chris.
Not a ton of them, but we do have an XKeys 24 plugged into our Companion. It's kind of one of those things where I had the XKeys plugged into vMix and had it configured in vMix, but then it's tied to that vMix box, and it's not as mobile. Like, one of the great things about Companion is it's mobile. It's all like I can just point it to a different vMix box, and all my buttons and everything works the same. And so I moved our XKeys to the Companion. You lose some of the features of the XKeys, but you can push buttons and it works great. Except you can't use it over satellite. The XKeys has to be plugged directly into the Companion box.
Go, Samuel.
Yeah, well, I actually use this for office hours task. I'm on the graphics group that makes the thumbnails for the website, and I got this here Contour Shuttle Pro, and you can see I can step through just use the commands on the YouTube and step through the commands, and then I just press the button and takes the PNG screenshot. And I also have the X keys here that I use for my mute button, so it works well.
That's great. Next question.
Josh Kaufman from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. What are the enhancements and new capabilities of Companion version 3 from version 2? Is version 3 backwards compatible?
Go ahead, Andrew.
We sort of touched on that a little bit earlier. Essentially, other than the separation of the modules, there's a lot more you can do within the buttons. Now the buttons have the ability to do multiple steps per press. So you can have a button that when you press it once, it does one thing. If you press and hold it, it does something else. If you release it after a certain time, it does something else. Whole bunch of additional capabilities there. Is it backwards compatible? I'm not sure what that means, but certainly modules that were created for version 2, some of them have been automatically or have been made to work with version 3, but hopefully people have rewritten. I rewrote all of my modules to work with version 3 because they're quite a lot more capabilities that you'll lose out on if you don't update your module.
Next question.
Brian Maddox from Savannah, Georgia. Do you think we've crossed a threshold with Companion where we are adding capabilities to equipment that they don't already have versus just controlling what is already there?
Go ahead, Chris.
Maybe, kind of. It's one of those things where Companion can't do anything unless the device supports it. And so in that respect, no, and it's never going to be that, because what Companion is doing is just telling the device to do things. Whereas kind of a maybe is that, yeah, there's some logic and some state flow type stuff that you can do inside Companion that determines what is done in the hardware itself. But the hardware itself is limited by itself, and Companion can't do anything that the hardware can't do. So maybe.
Go ahead, Andy.
Brian, forgive me ahead of time for altering your question a little bit. I think another way to look at this is a long time ago with Companion and with a Streamdeck, we've crossed a production threshold where as an operator, you can do things on a Streamdeck that you couldn't do before very easily. And that's the strength of all of this. And I think that's also the strength of Andy B's module, which is he's adding capabilities to it where I can see, Andy and I actually were talking about this, of giving a tool to the A2, for example, where in one little package, they have everything. It doesn't replace, having to monitor RF and all of that, but you can actually monitor RF now on a Streamdeck, which was my little mind-blown moment. So I think it's really increased production capabilities, and I'm sure some of us have seen that already over the last few years.
Yeah, I find that oftentimes when you start having software do this in a more general sense, you can oftentimes think of, well, the hardware only knows how to do these commands, but I can organize those commands in a way that there is no place on the hardware that does that. We see this a lot with something like Mix Effect Pro, which I use a lot for a lot of our shows and what we use for this show. It's doing things that the ATEM can't do. we just tell, it does, like the way it manages super sources and everything else. The ATEM's not able, one of the most powerful reasons to get an ATEM with super sources is because they're really great, except that the tool to actually execute those is almost worthless. What comes with the ATEM software, and then you have Mix Effect Pro, and it's kind of like you should almost bundle it with it because now you have all these tools, and suddenly it works and it's smooth and it does all the things. It's not changing what the switcher's doing, but that software is making it so that it will work fluidly and give you a ton of use that you wouldn't get otherwise. Yeah, go ahead.
I thought of one other thing too. Brian and I use a lot of Yamaha mixers, and they have hotkeys. Those hotkeys are really limited, what you can do with them. And so now you can get to pages, you can execute commands. The navigation is so much easier with Andy's module.
Yeah, and I know when we built software for Hangouts, for instance, we would have things that we built a whole bunch of conditional processes where we had what we call soft clicking, which is like I just click on 3. There's 10 people in the thing. I click on 3. The auto switcher and the auto mixing will only look at those 3. It just ignores everybody else, and so those things, that was adding a new feature set. But it's not changing the way the software works, but it's changing the way it operates. Go ahead, Andrew.
Yeah, as Andy alluded to, it allows you to make things a little safer. You can take your Streamdeck and give it to somebody who doesn't know how to use the mixer at all, but they do know how to press the button when they want to talk, or they can turn up the volume on something, and they won't mess anything else up. So in some ways, a very complex device can be really dumbed down to somebody who just needs certain functionality, and then you're not worried that they're going to make a mistake. And what Andy was talking about with the Shure module, for example, is I can now look at RF levels. I can see whether a microphone's been turned on or off. And then your person that normally wouldn't, you normally would have to get on comms and go, is that mic live? Can I check it? Sort of thing. That can be taken away and given to somebody who, that's all they do. They can't do anything else with it other than to check it for you. And that really speeds up your workflow.
Good, Brian.
So, as usual, I asked a question because I wanted to make a statement.
We call that a Cochrane here. You haven't been around for a while, but we actually call that a Cochrane, and so you're throwing a bit of a Cochrane there. Go ahead.
So I have a bit of a Cochrane there. No, I just wanted to point out that one of the unique things that Andy showed in his module is this idea that a preamp level can pass a certain point, it can go into clip, and from the feedback, the companion module itself will then send a message to the mixer to lower the levels, i.e. this is literally a function that the console doesn't have.
Right.
And so that's why I say that, it's I realize this is just one example, but it's beginning to show the capability with this tool of actually taking information in and then making a decision, pre-programmed decision, to change something automatically that isn't just a function of I'm remote controlling something in a more convenient way that the mixer will already do. I thought that one function in particular was just kind of mind-blowing, that we're talking about, adding a feature. The newer Yamaha consoles have this feature, the very latest generation, but nothing before that ever had that capability, and we've added a capability that it just didn't have.
Yeah, it's really good. Yeah, good, Chris.
Yeah, one of the things that I think is common in all the responses is really what a big component of Companion is a user-defined user interface. So there is a user interface for the Yamaha mixers and the Behringer mixers, but you can plug in Companion and make that user interface look how you want it to look and be custom to you and your needs and your workflow, and how I set mine up and how I may use it may be completely different. And it's probably completely different than everyone here on the panel. And so I think that's just really one of the powers of Companion is it's user defined, and you can define what things look like.
You go ahead, Andrew.
I was just going to say that it's important that the device itself has enough communication capability to allow the things you want it to do. So it's very frustrating when you walk into a new product and try to control it and find out that it's very limited in the amount of information you can send back and forth. Some devices have tons of capabilities, but they just don't offer that to the outside world, and that can be frustrating. Hopefully people manufacturers get on the bandwagon and actually start to allow more control.
One of our part of what we're trying to do with office hours, if office hours gets big enough, one of the things is allowing us to again create feedback paths that are excruciatingly large. So if suddenly you start getting over a week, you get 1,000 requests for something, we think that helps at least help someone think about it, a little bit. And most companies, if they see one or two requests here and there, they don't think about it that much. If they see hundreds of requests within a week or two, they pay more attention. Like, let's at least have a meeting about it. Next question.
Aaron Cody from St. Louis, Missouri asks, has anyone given a Streamdeck with Companion to a client rep or third-party event manager during a production? If so, what controls have you given them? Seems like a good way to give them something to do.
Go ahead, Andy.
So the thing to be cautious about is I've had video departments ask me, hey, can I set up this little mixer in line with all my decks and all of that? And then I'm like, no. What do you need to do? And often they need to pre-fade audio. That's one thing. They want to adjust their own monitor levels. There may be a few other things. I had a project manager a long time ago tell me, never give a gun to ducks. So I think with Andy's module, what's great is you can remove controls that will get in the way of production and just give them what they need. And yes, I think, Andrew, you've given out your Streamdeck, right, to video departments?
Go ahead, Andrew.
Yeah, yes, definitely. To stage manager, to video people, things like that, where they want to be able to have, for example, a little bit additional control than just a mix or a feed. Often the stage manager would like to be able to turn up, say, a podium mic or something like this separately from the video audio. And they may also be able to control their microphone, turn it on and off without having to have an additional mixer that they need to play with and things like this. So it's beautiful for those kind of situations. You always want to vet the person that's controlling, going, do I trust that they're going to make a mess of this, or are they going to be okay? And people that can do it, they appreciate it so much that they have a nice, simple interface to do what they need to do.
We do it a lot. We give a lot of people customize, what they can see, what they can hear, what they can, how they talk. But we also put them in little sandboxes so that they don't usually affect program. So usually I don't let them, them having lots of control over what they're looking at and how they're listening to it and everything else. I want to give them all those controls. Them affecting my actual show, I usually try to keep them, one wall between that. Next question.
Roscoe Jones from Madison, Indiana wants to know, what Yamaha mixer are you demoing with? And what do you consider to be an old Yamaha mixer that can still benefit from Companion? Are there any other brands you are willing to recommend?
Go ahead, Samuel.
Well, Andy can probably speak more to this than me, but I use the TF1 with Andy's companion, and just for simple things like we call presets, and I set up like in our church I set up like about 8 different presets where it controls both vMix and the ATEM and the mixer. So just like volunteers can just press like buttons, and if no one else is technical to run it, then so that's what. Back to the question. I know the Soundcraft UI series is used a lot and also Ellen and Heath I'm familiar with, and Behringer has good controls. So I think most modern mixers will work with Companion in some way or other.
Go to Andrew.
The mixer I'm demoing with is a CL1 that I own. The mixers that are supported by this module: TF, CL, QL, Ravage, DM3, DM7, the TO preamps, the Rio preamps. And you're asking if it can control older modules. Nothing before that. Yeah, that's what it is.
Very good, Chris.
Yeah, in terms of recommendations, we use an X32, and the companion module for that is great. We also have a Soundcraft UI series, and it works for that, though I would not recommend the UI unless you get the 24.
Next question.
From Craig McFarlane in Boston, Massachusetts. How complete is the Streamdeck Plus control integration?
How do people feel about it? Go ahead, Samuel.
I don't have the Streamdeck Plus, but I've played a little bit with integrations, and the dials work well, but the touchscreen isn't really. You can't really do anything else than trigger buttons from the touchscreen.
Go ahead, Andrew.
Yeah, I'm using a Streamdeck Plus here, and it works well. They haven't got an emulator screen yet, but they're working on that. And I fully agree with the LCD panel part. It's interesting, and it works. The LCD part works best with the Streamdeck software, not with Companion. But with Companion, it's good enough, and having the knobs is huge. It's a game changer for sure.
Next question.
From Alan Scott in Fredericton, Canada. I'm using Companion and Vicreo to toggle dual monitors in Zoom meetings via a global keyboard shortcut. It usually doesn't work until I have used the menu to set it the first time. Any ideas why?
Good, Samuel.
Well, for the first thing, I would check that you have the latest version of both Companion and Vicreo hotkey. That's the first thing. I use it on both Windows and Mac. The Mac version, I find I have to often start Vicreo. You have to start there's not really an auto run function. And also, if you use, I have had a dropout that doesn't connect to Companion once, and I would just like close the whole Companion and I restarted it, and then it worked fine. So try to update and restart is my recommendation. Good,
Chris.
My first thought is this is not a Companion Vicreo problem; that it's a global keyboard shortcut problem. That would be my first trying to look at this. That would be the first thing I would try and fix to make sure that is not the issue. That it's not the keyboard shortcut; it's the Companion.
Next question.
Craig McFarlane from Boston, Massachusetts. Are there any conversion helpers, tools, or processes to take my 70-plus button actions in my Streamdecks to do the equivalent in Companion?
Go ahead, Chris.
None that I know of, and they're very different approaches to what they're doing with the Streamdeck. That transitioning from one to the other would be pretty complex. Just kind of an example of that is like the vMix instance. Like the vMix modules in the Streamdeck software is connecting to vMix basically as a virtual MIDI device. And the vMix module in Companion is TCP/IP. And so translating those two would be very complicated to do that. The other thing is how you work in the Streamdeck software versus how you work in the Companion software. They're very different workflows. And so I think you would be much better off just starting from scratch and just building your Companion setup from scratch and thinking about how you navigate around your pages and things like that.
Next question.
Matthew LeCount from Oakland asks, could you send the link to the Slack group to Discord, please?
Good, Chris.
No need to do that. You can just log into your Bitfocus account, and it's there. It's there on the menu. It's under when you load up your Bitfocus Companion settings. There's Wizard, Emulator, Web Button, Bugs and Features, Facebook, and Slack Chat. So there's a link right to it.
And Andrew, can you make sure that everyone knows where to find your companion module?
Sure. Like all companion modules, if you click on that little question mark, it will give you information on how to contact the programmer. And in my case, I like people to either contact me at my website, which is a discourse site, which is a type of forum, discourse.check12.com. I guess I could put that up in the
yeah, please do. Absolutely.
Okay.
Thanks so much for your time. Thanks for joining the presentation, Andrew.
Thank you. It's great to be here again.
Really, really great to have you. And a reminder to everyone that Andrew is going to jump into after hours after this if you want to keep on having kind of a roundtable discussion. Some of the other folks may jump in as well. So that's going to happen right after the show. I just want to thank some of the folks that we haven't seen for a while, Brian and Chris and Samuel and Andy. It's really, really great to have you here for the second hour. So thanks so much for joining us and being part of the conversation. Thanks to all the panelists for being part of the conversation. We can't do this without you. So a great first hour, great second hour. Thanks to all the producers for asking all the great questions that keep the show going. It's a real short show if you don't ask those questions. And so we really appreciate you jumping in and asking them. And thanks to the incredible team on the back end that makes sure that this happens 7 days a week, every day. We have not missed a day since March 25th, 2000. So for over 3 years, and Sundays and things getting closed, moving hardware, and 2020. Sorry, 2000. No, 2000. That would have been a long. Welcome to episode 8000. Anyway, so since 2020. So we've been doing this for a little while, and it's really just an incredible village that comes together to make sure that this all happens. So really, really great work. Yeah, today is episode 1368. To give you a sense of how many times we've successfully pulled this off. So anyway, it's a huge team and we really appreciate it. A quick reminder that we will be talking to volunteers and talking about other volunteer opportunities tomorrow at 9 a.m. And we'll put that up on Discord. We traveled 88,000 miles today, 143,000 kilometers, and that is 704 million bananas for scale. All right, let's go ahead and jump into After Hours. Oh, that's
Sorry about that. Sorry about that, Alex. I normally
wouldn't. Did I say 2000?
Wouldn't jump in on your rap like that, but that was in a pretty egregious bit of fake news.
That's only off. Fake news.
For 2 decades.
Yeah, exactly. We were doing this since 1930. Yeah, every day we were doing it. We were just putting little wires together, trying to get them to work.
We were beta testing Zoom 15 years before it was a product.
Yeah, it's the little things in life. So beta testing for 15 years, you're going to come out with a good product. That's all I'm saying. All right, see you, everybody.
Thank you. Anybody, is it a different link for after hours?
Yes.
How does that work? How do I get there?
It is. How do you find it?
Is it on the email?